Alrighty, so now we're ready to sum up everything that we've done, hopefully, and put it all together. Alright, so once again, the rubric, to make it easy for everyone who does another subject, which is all of you, I've actually turned the rubric into dot points, which is to basically make each sentence a different dot point. Okay, so dot point 1, okay, it's basically all about your prescribed text and related text. It tells you have to evaluate them. Easy peasy. Then we have a look at how they represent individual, shared, and competing or conflicting political perspectives, ideas, events, and situations. We've had a big look at that. Then we have a look at people's political motivations, okay, and actions, and more importantly, okay, the impact these acts have on individual lives or society more broadly. Okay, now that's something we haven't had a look at, but it's basically through their motivations and actions. This comes through in the body paragraphs, which will be in the second summing up video. And then the last point is basically making sure you talk about the different textual forms and language choices and media of production. That's basically where you're presenting your evidence and techniques to show how he's contributed ideas to the text. Alright, so for an introduction, just quickly, you need to have a thesis statement. You need to have an idea that underpins the whole thing and is going to be the basis of your answer. Okay, it doesn't have to be just one sentence. When people say thesis statement, they mean tell us your idea. Okay, and it doesn't have to be at the start, but that's a good place to have it. Try and link the ideas that you have to the actual question. Okay, you've got to mention who are the composers and the texts. Okay, and you've got to talk about how these texts are going to help you in your actual answer. Alright, so for thesis statements and thesis ideas, for this module, you probably want to include words or ideas that reflect politics, representation, particular perspectives, and the effect those perspectives will have. Alright, so it does need to be kind of a general statement, an overall statement, because it is for both your prescribed text, why weren't we told, and whatever your related text is. So you can't just have a thesis statement that is about Reynolds. It has to sum up the two texts or three texts, I would suggest two, that you're going to discuss. Now, I've written one here. It's not brilliant, but it'll do. Through a presentation of their ideas and motivations, the composer will allow an insight into their politics and how they view society. So what you're actually telling the marker is that you know that there is the composer is going to present an idea and motivation, okay, and that's going to show you their politics and how they view society. So that would be the crux of your answer. Now, there's no particular question I'm going to answer in terms of the introduction I'm about to do. Okay, so it is very general and a bit vague, but here we go. So a lot of words on this page. So here we have our thesis statement. Okay, so you've already read that. Then you need to introduce your text or your ideas. It doesn't matter in which way you do it. Okay, we've got through Henry Reynolds' non-fictional historical monograph. So that's telling the marker you know what type of text it is. That's in the rubric. Why Weren't We Told, 1999. And song God Save the Queen, composed in 1977 by the Sex Pistols. The deeply held beliefs of their composers are represented to the audience. Okay, so you basically introduced your text, but you haven't gone, this is a text, this is a text. You put it in a sentence. Reynolds illustrates his belief that the history of Australia has been misrepresented and that the First Nations people should be fairly represented in history, politics, and society. So this here, okay, this basically sums up Reynolds' point of view, his motivation, his desire, what he's trying to express in the text as a whole, which is very important. He expresses beliefs that he shares with others and opposing views to give insight into his argument. So that's your little bit in the rubric, okay, where you've got shared and opposing views. Cool. Then you want to introduce the Sex Pistols again and what they're doing things for. The Sex Pistols highlight their disgust with the political system in Britain, which still celebrates the monarchy, by sneering and shouting their way through a diatribe. I don't have a last question. I don't have a last sentence there for that. Once again, that's where I would link it all back to whatever the question was, using some wording for the question to illustrate to the marker that you know the question, you've read the question, and you understand it. Cool. Part 2 will be how to do a body paragraph. All right, welcome back. Summing up, part 2, body paragraph. We're going to have a look at one, and we're going to link that all back to the rubric. Alrighty, so for a body paragraph number 1, once again, as I said in summing up number 1, I don't have a question that I'm answering, so it's a little bit general, but always make sure your topic sentence is relating to or using a few words from the question to once again show the marker you know what you're talking about. So I'll be talking about individual perspective to illustrate the politics of Reynolds and a related text. Okay, we've got a situation involving the school children in the jail on Palm Island. Okay, and we're going to talk about how that creates a sense of empathy for the reader, and that's why he's put it in there. All right, and then we're going to talk about how Reynolds gains our trust, presenting himself as a scholar or a smarty pants. Then we're going to have a look at the related text where Johnny Rotten of the Sex Pistols positions himself or his band and punks against the world. You're either with them or against. So this is what I've got as the first half of the paragraph. I've put it over 2 slides. So for the topic sentence, the composer's ability to shape the narrative and present their viewpoint to the responder allows them to dictate their politics throughout the text. All right, so up till here, it's a general statement saying what they're able to do, and because they're the individual and they're putting their spin on things, they can dictate what they want to show us in the text. So they need to grab us and put us into the text. Reynolds is able to gain both the empathy and trust of the reader early on as he presents one of the catalysts for his wish to help Aboriginal people through the unforgettable incident. Okay, so once again we've got the wish to help Aboriginal people. So this comes back to why he's doing this. All right, and we've got the reason why. So the evidence is in a tour of a jail in which he is introduced to 2 girls who are there due to wearing. Oh, there's a spelling mistake. This is swearing. At the teacher, he juxtaposes the terms thick walls and thin little girls to allow us to ponder the injustice and excessive nature of the incarceration. Okay, so here we have the actual literary, the technique, and here we've got the quote. Okay, and then in this bit here, this is where we actually talk about what it's actually doing, why he's put it in there. All right, in the second part of the paragraph, this is all one paragraph. Okay, once he has created this sense of empathy, Reynolds then gains our trust through referring to his honours and a master degree in history. Okay, this accentuates his academic credentials to further his indisputability in the audience's eyes. All right. So that, okay, is why he's talking about his honours and his master's degree, okay? His indisputability, okay? Everything he's saying is correct because he's gone to university. He's got that weight behind him. Once he presents himself as trustworthy and creates a sense of empathy, Reynolds can then further his case to the reader to create a more understanding and thus more pressure on the government, all right? So this section in the red here, okay, this is to do with his motivation and how he wants to change society. Now, the second part of the paragraph, okay, is where we bring in the related text. You could do a separate paragraph for that, but is generally seen by markers as a more sophisticated response if you can whack them all in there together. So, similarly, the Sex Pistols position themselves early on in their song through the use of the personal pronouns and imperative statements. The couplet, "Don't be told what you want, don't be told what you need," illustrated their positioning of themselves as anti-authority and the voice of the disaffected youth of Britain. Okay, so once again, we've got the use of personal pronouns, imperative statements, we've even mentioned a couplet, Okay, there's our techniques. Okay, we've got our quote here. Okay, and then the fancy thing we've got is why they've done that. Okay, and it illustrates their positioning of themselves. Okay, and so it's no good just having a quote and the technique. You've got to say why it's important. So once again, as the composer positions themselves in their text, they can allow them to further their ideas throughout. So it's a bit of a general sort of sentence there, but it kind of sums it up. So as you can see in what I've just gone through, okay, we've got the prescribed text, we've got the related text, we've talked about individual perspective, we've talked about a situation, we've talked about some ideas, we've analysed the political motivations and the actions, okay, and we've talked about how it might impact society more broadly. All right, and we've had a look at the relationship, we've had a look at the language choices, and we've had a look at a song and also a text, so we've looked at media of production. So we're covering quite a lot of the rubric just in that one paragraph, and that's what you've always got to relate it back to. Hope this all helped you out. Cheers.